Greetings from Tokyo, my dear friends. This is Daisuke, and I very much hope that this video finds you well and in very good spirits wherever you are in the world. And today, if you don't mind, I'd like to continue on with the 31 days of gangster films and police films from the year 1970 to the present day. And as I've mentioned before, I admit that this might seem like a wide expanse of years, but I also hope that this can afford us, you and me, with the opportunity to be able to talk about as many films as possible in the context of these really exciting and quite electrifying genres of cinema, those being the police film genre and the gangster film genre. Now, what I have today is a film that is from 1970, or described as being from 1970, so right on the edge here of this range of years here, but it still falls within this category, so that's great because this is from one of the icons of cinema, of world cinema, French cinema, and this type of genre cinema as well. And we have a film that is, I think, one that can be described, it could be fairly described as being in the context of the police film genre, what might be known in French, in the French language, as the police thriller, policier work. Because there are indeed that investigation or police investigator components or characters to this particular work. However, I'd like to talk about it in the context of the gangster film because it is also a film about criminals, it's about planning, it's about the heist, it's about the various machinations, the relationships, the connections, the loyalties, the betrayals, the truth, the unknowns, hidden agendas, and planning, meticulous planning, and sharing of information and the like. And planning versus mistakes, fate versus the individual will, what holds out at the end, what does this mean, what are at stake in terms of the overall looks and philosophies of the characters as well as the film itself, the film proper. When we think about the effect and style and visual flourish and flair, and at the end of the day, how it makes us feel inside as viewers of this really dynamic work. And again, I'm speaking of work that is described as being from 1970, and this is a work from the great filmmaker Jean-Pierre Melville. And the name of the work is Le Cercle Rouge. And please pardon me for my very poor pronunciation of the French language, but this is a film, Le Cercle Rouge, the Red Circle, as we can translate it into English. And the Red Circle has a really intriguing concept or linkage behind it that we see revealed at the very start of the film, which may be suggestive or not of a type of illusory or ephemeral or maybe permanent type of linkage to a sense of fate, to a sense of maybe a grand scheme or design of existence and philosophy, or it might be a type of smokescreen or a type of say, wonderfully applied maybe illusion that is meant to be suggestive of something more nihilistic or pessimistic that might be in store for us, the viewers, and also for the characters that are involved in this film. So already it's an intriguing premise. Now, that intriguing premise continues on with this film when we think about the characters. And the characters here are portrayed such a great cast with people like André Bourvil and Jean-Marie Volonté and Yves Montand and Alain Delon and others. And so we have essentially a film about criminals or people that might be said to be found on the other side of the line of the law. And we understand that through their various circumstances as characters, they are where they are when we meet them at the start of the film or as viewers of the film. And through or regards to or otherwise in association with those set of circumstances that we understand form part of their respective backstories, they become involved, or they want to become involved in the planning and endeavor involving theft, robbery, and heists. Now, this means, of course, getting the information that is necessary, teaming up with the various people that will be needed for this type of operation, what to do with the stuff after the fact, because it will still be quote unquote hot, and how do you deal with this type of stolen hot property, and how do you enjoy the proceeds of a particular heist or theft when you also have at the same time not just the potential for betrayal within the ranks, also the possibility for mistakes and misdeeds that could lead to very significant and severe consequences if things are done poorly or incorrectly or wrongly. But also what that means in terms of the external forces that are always on the hunt, on the attack, on the prowl, waiting to pounce. And this is referring to, I think, a number of factors on the external side, or indeed on the other side of the line of the law. One being the inspector or the police or law enforcement aspect, which is another part of this film. It's a very key component. Not only do you have the criminal activities that are on display, but we also have the police or law enforcement that are that is or are hot on the tails, as it were, of these criminal escapades. Will the police capture these particular criminals, or will the criminals evade capture going forward? Again, that's part of the idea of suspense or tension that guides this film to its great, great conclusion. So we have this chase aspect, police and criminals. And again, therefore, in that context, as I mentioned, this could be, I think, really reasonably discussed in the context of the police film or police procedural or investigation inquiry genre or subgenre, but also at the same time we are dealing with criminals and the heist and planning, so we can talk about it, I think, in the criminal or gangster genre as well. But that's one of the great things about this, and indeed other films during these 31 days, which is there's so much malleability and scope of interpretation that these films could be discussed in either genre very fairly and very reasonably indeed. I think that's the case for Le Cercle Rouge. But that's one, I think, of those external forces. Another external force that we could say potentially exists here in this really supremely developed drama is the notion that I think is hinted at the very start, which is what I tried to refer to earlier, which is the notion or concept of fate, and whether indeed it exists in in a kind of morally supreme context, type of maybe divine justice, for lack of a better phrase, or maybe it is ephemeral, it is illusory, or it is an illusion that doesn't really exist at all, and therefore the whole framework of a type of existential philosophy would be totally broken, and it would be bereft of that type of framework, leaving behind only the potential or promise, or maybe, for lack of a better phrase, or the lack of promise, leading to a viewpoint that is pessimistic and nihilistic. In other words, no matter how hard one tries as an individual, how much is really in our hands versus what it is that fate has in store for us, or perhaps there is nothing there of meaning, thus making our connections rendered meaningless. And is that really the case here? And I think that is true not just in the direct context of the plot, in terms of betrayal and loyalty and hidden agendas and planning and planning and planning, and the idea of mistakes and frailties and fallibilities that can emerge. Not only is that present in the plot, but is also present in the background, in the build-up, in the ambiance, in the atmosphere, thus making for a really well-layered film. This is such a well-layered film. I mean, we have in the hands of Melville the cool exteriors, and when I say cool, I mean that in a double entendre meaning. Cool in the sense of a temperature, of a cold type of coolness. In other words, there is a brevity, there is a bleakness potentially, there is also an idea of isolation or separation that exists within the frame that is suggestive of a type of temperature-related coolness. And I think that is applied to suggest a theme or handling of a theme of isolation that is threatening the very existence, I think, of these characters, even as they're trying to exert their, in a way, or in a sense, their individual will for purposes of achieving these goals of heist or theft or robbery, and whether, and the aftermath thereof, if indeed they succeed on that level as well. So that, I think, is one level in terms of the cool. The other level in terms of the cool is the other meaning, which is the cool, hip, chic, ultra cool type of stuff, and that comes through also in the stylings and the musings and the permutations of the look and feel and aesthetic of the film in the hands of in the hands of Jean-Pierre Melville in terms of the cinema and music and stylings. It also comes through so vividly in the performances. I mean, we have iconic figures of cinema appearing here, and they are appearing in these, on the one hand, these weathered, experienced characters that have seen a lot in their lives. On the one hand, that brings another edge of coolness and experience to their actions, but also the look and feel and their very presence. These iconic figures of cinema. I'm speaking of these great performers, Yves Montand and Jean-Marie Volonté and Alain Delon. I mean, when they are on the screen, it is electrifying, and we are with them, and they become, therefore, these criminal figures, but they are thus anti-heroes. So we cannot help but sympathize with them because we are associated with them. We know them, and yet they are doing these things, but we still follow them all the same. And will they or won't they succeed? That becomes part of the great sense of plot and tension and suspense. Notwithstanding, of course, the fact that we also get great sources of suspense and tension in the action set pieces and the planning and precision that occurs within the context of Le Cercle Rouge. So it is coming from all sources, my dear friends, when you're watching this film. There is so much leveling going on. There's so much detail going on, but it's also suggestive of many seemingly and purposefully applied contradictory elements that could lead one to a whole host, a myriad of possible interpretations when watching this, thus making this a film that can be enjoyed over and over and over again. You're in the hands of a master filmmaker when you're watching this film, Le Cercle Rouge. It is a crime film. It is a crime caper. It is also it has a philosophical overtones. It has the great hallmarks of Jean-Pierre Melville's cinema. So you're getting a great example of the Melville touch, as well as great examples of these performers, as I mentioned, the iconic performances of Alain Delon and others, as well as a great example of the policier film, the police film, or the gangster film, or the criminal crime saga film, as well as a great example of cinema overall. It has it all. So if you haven't checked out this or other works by Jean-Pierre Melville, you're in for a real treat. I definitely say that you are in for a treat, including this film, which is again from 1970, and it is Le Cercle Rouge. Okay, my dear friends, so that's it for now. And so until we meet again, please be happy and healthy and well, and please keep on watching a lot of great, great movies. Thank you so much, as always, for your time. I very, very much appreciate it. Stay strong, stay safe, and cheers.